Welcome to Alberta Conservation Association's Harvest Your Own podcast, the resource for everything hunting, navigating through the field, the butcher shop, and the kitchen. Life is all about great food. Let's get started.
Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Brad Fenson, an avid outdoor enthusiast who has worked as a freelance journalist, photographer, and public speaker for over 3 decades. I have hunted, fished, and foraged all my life and hope to share my passion for the outdoors. Along the way, I want to encourage everyone to harvest wild proteins and enjoy the satisfaction of providing the next meal for your family. Our goal is to educate, entertain, and inspire individuals to get outdoors and create a connection between food, health, and your future meals. Welcome to Harvest Your Own. Today we have a special guest, and I would describe this lady as a hunter, angler, mother, world traveler, conservationist, and do-it-yourself outdoor enthusiast, Sheila Campbell. How are you today?
Thanks, Brad. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure having you here. Tell us a little bit about Sheila so the guests knew who we're talking to today.
Well, I think those are quite the nice accolades, but certainly an outdoor enthusiast. I grew up doing lots of camping and hiking and biking and canoeing and kayaking, and certainly being outdoors has always been a big part of my life.
Yeah, that's something that most of us have in common with Harvest Your Own. We all love the outdoors. Did you come from a hunting family?
No, not at all. Well, I should say my immediate family, no, we weren't hunters. I had an uncle or two that had hunted, and I knew that my grandpa went out hunting, but certainly it wasn't a part of my childhood.
Right. So you weren't raised on deer meat and moose and elk or deer or ducks?
No. I actually have a picture of, I guess there was one time that I remember where my dad did go out and he went out duck hunting, but he didn't. But he wasn't a hunter, but he did go out, must have gone out with a friend. And there's a picture of me, I was about 10. And I have this memory of us with this bird in the garage, and we were plucking it, I think. And there's a great picture of me just with this look on my face of, oh my goodness, what are we doing?
Why would you do that?
Yeah. So it was certainly, I guess it was on the fringes of my childhood, but it certainly wasn't a big part of my life at all.
Yeah, but it obviously created a memory.
It's that particular picture certainly has been circulated around my family since I have become a hunter. Everyone likes to look back at that picture and say, "Wow, look how far you've come." Right.
So tell us, how did you get involved in hunting? Where do you get started nowadays?
Yeah, for me, to be honest, it's kind of a boring story. I fell in love with a hunter.
Yep.
And because
I think that's easy to do, though.
There you go. Because I had always done and came from an outdoor family, but we did a lot of non-consumptive recreation. And so when I started dating this guy, who I knew, I'd known Dan for a long time, and I knew that he was a hunter. When we started, going out, I was like, oh, November's this hunting season that I'd heard about, and I wanted to, go out because to me it was just another way to be outside and be in the outdoors, and so it wasn't such a stretch. I'll be honest, early on, I wasn't sure what I would think the first time I saw, a deer get shot. And I realized that it, for me anyways, and it's different for everybody, for me, I was like, oh, well, that now is going to be the meat on the table. So I was, it wasn't a very hard transition for me, but it was certainly a different mindset than I hadn't grown up with.
Yeah. And I think it's very important to share that message because people that don't hunt and maybe don't have a mentor or have met someone, I think that's a question they ask is, how am I going to react to this? Am I, is it going to scar me? Am I going to be all right? Is it easy to get through? But
yeah. And for me, it really was, well, this is going to be some great meat that we're going to have, to feed us all, feed us all year long. And so for me, and it is different for everybody, it always has been about putting some really good food on the table and knowing where that meat came from.
So obviously, during the dating years, Dan must have been a pretty good cook with wild game to have you interested in going. A lot of people, they talk about, we tried wild game and it didn't taste good or this or that, but you were prepared to look at it in the field and say, there's some barbecue material.
Well, you certainly know where your foods come from when you see it right from the beginning. And I'd say that over the years, we've gotten to be better cooks for sure.
Right.
If someone has tried deer or moose or elk for the very first time, or goose, for example, goose. The first time I tried goose, I thought, oh, I don't really like this. It's too livery. But then,
Right.
You learn how to cook it, and you learn how to prepare it and how to field dress it so that it actually will be a great meal on the table.
That sort of goes with everything in life. The longer you spend doing something or working with it, the better you get at it. And cooking wild game is an art, and so it's hard to just pick it up out of the blue and start, because it's a different process. There's less time required. You don't want to do it well done because you'll get into those livery textures and tastes. So it's important to have a good mentor, or at least follow good recipes. Nowadays with the internet, it's super easy to get started and find recipes and know which way to go with whatever you harvest in the field.
Yeah, that's right. And having a good mentor is absolutely key. So I was really fortunate when I did get into hunting that I had some great mentors. Dan, my brother-in-law, they're some of their friends, and being able to have people who were more than willing and able to show me and help me learn what to do. Because ultimately, and I feel like I'm still learning every single time I go out, because I'm at heart a hiker, so I want to move fast and through the landscape that I'm in. So when I'm hunting, which is one thing that I do love about it, is it makes me slow down, and it makes me look and see the landscape in a very different way than when I'm hiking, which is more about getting from A to B and the aesthetics of the experience.
Hunters are very observant people, not necessarily when you start, but when you start looking for all the sign and the little details and the tracks, or a feather that's in the bush somewhere, or different things.
Absolutely. And that's what I do love about it, is you start to see things differently. So you see that, there's things have been nipped off of the bushes, or you're observing tracks that you aren't necessarily seeing if you're mountain biking or hiking through. Or at least that I wasn't, right? So it was really just being able to see the landscape in a different way that I really enjoyed about, and still enjoy about hunting.
Yeah, it takes us to our special place, right?
Yeah,
it's the quality time in life, and expanding our experiences outdoors, and getting to see other things that people often overlook or miss, or hike too fast and get through it.
Yeah, for sure. And for me, sometimes it's just the chaos of, especially when the kids were little, being able to take that break. And sometimes I was like, I'm just going to go hunting so that I can sit at, the opening to this slough bottom, and the snow is falling all around me, and I can hear, a little vole or something that's, scurrying around, and you're just glassing and just watching and just sitting and being. And sometimes that was kind of the motivation to be able to go out. And even if I didn't see anything, or maybe did and didn't have the opportunity, just simply being out there was a reward in and of itself.
Yes, and I love your story, because how many hunters have been out there that hear a vole and swears it makes as much noise as a deer or a moose? They're scurrying under the grass, under the snow, and you're looking all around, and then you realize that it's like 3 feet away under the snow, and you're like, how can that little creature make so much noise?
Yep. And you're sure that it's, going to be the biggest buck that you've come across, and no, it's just a little vole that's at your feet. But you've been quiet enough and sitting and still enough in, just in yourself, that you're actually able to spend time and hear those things.
Yeah, and that's what makes it special, because when you add hunting to the equation of hiking and outdoor experiences, all of your senses are heightened to a point where, it's different than everyday life. You hear things you don't hear, you see things, you smell things, and you experience things a whole lot different.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So, and what I would say is, when a couple of years ago, I guess a couple now is maybe more like 5 or 6, when I first started getting into bird hunting, I kind of went, well, this is super social. I should have started this a long time ago, because, whichever type of hunting you're doing, there's different experiences with it. And going out pheasant hunting, or, hunting for grouse, it was just an incredibly social experience in a different way than deer hunting.
It's funny you say that, because that's what my wife Steph says is, I really like the bird hunting because I don't have to be quiet and I can talk to the people around me. And it's a very social experience when you get out there, unlike hunting deer where you're, super stealth mode, trying to pay attention and not wanting to make extra noise.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's cool with, if you go out, you're fortunate to go out with someone that has a dog. The whole experience with the dog is pretty cool, to see the relationship between the hunter and the dog, and to see a dog in action that's well trained is pretty amazing.
Right. So it's interesting. You've said your boyfriend from years ago, now your spouse, is your mentor. Would you say a spouse is a good mentor?
For me, absolutely has been. And then it's become, I think, a really good partnership over the years. I think he likes to say that maybe me getting into hunting is cut into his hunting time. But I think it's also made it a real family thing. And, our boys now are old enough that they've gotten their hunter ed courses, and they're essentially 12 and 14. So, so they're able to both get out and hunt. So it becomes a real family thing. And I think it has made it so that there's more hunting for everyone involved, because it has become a real family activity for us.
And those are great stories. Now, if people don't have a mentor in life, we actually have some great resources in Alberta, and you can look them up online.
This podcast is produced for Harvest Your Own, a program dedicated to those who want to reconnect with food and health through their experiences outdoors. HarvestYourOwn.ca is a resource for individuals to learn more about hunting and the outdoors. There's information to get you started and ensure that your compass stays pointed in the right direction to be successful. Where's your next meal coming from?
And that's what the show is all about. Where's your next meal coming from? So getting out with your spouse, your family, yourself, you just have to make the time and get out there and do it, and it has its rewards for sure. Let's get right to the meat and potatoes of it. I heard a story 2 years ago. You went out on your own. First off, if you start with a mentor, how do you end up hunting on your own?
So I've gone out on my own, often over the years, and a number of times. It was the first time that I had gone out and had dealt with the entire deer, right from beginning to end on my own. And I have to say it took me a while to recover from it. But it was, if I think of the journey that it took to get there over the years, there were a number of hurdles that just had to be overcome. And, not to be too retrospective on it, but, some of the initial hurdles were, I didn't spend... growing up and the types of activities I didn't spend a lot of time in, the bush, so to speak, where you park your truck on the road and then you're not on trails, like you're just going out. And so this feeling of knowing that I would always be able to get back to the truck and knowing where I was and not getting lost. So having a GPS and being able to, over the years, be absolutely confident and comfortable with knowing where I was and getting back. So that was one kind of hurdle to overcome. And then the other one was how am I going to get a deer out? Like these things will weigh more than me. And so how can I, there's a moral and ethical responsibility, a legal one too, to be able to take the animal out of the bush. So in overcoming some of those hurdles, it's a matter of getting, the sled. We've got a game cart and having a winch that is in the back in the truck, and it's just a portable one. And then the ramps to go on the back of the truck, so that when I get it to the truck, I can actually get it in the truck on my own.
And load it yourself.
And load it. So there's just some technical things you gotta, physical technical things you gotta be able to overcome and solve. And it felt like, it was a couple years ago, I guess, was the first time that by chance I happened to be all out on my own, and it all worked out and had all the tools in place and was able to do it.
But the knowledge you had, you were able to prepare and plan. Like, if I am successful, I need this stuff in the truck and I'm going to be ready. And you never know when you're going to get a deer or if you're going to be successful, but when you are, it allows you to do it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and so it did take time to get all those things in place, and just you grow in your confidence and your experience. And yeah, everything did kind of come together, I guess, on that one particular hunt at Junction Lake 2 years ago.
Awesome. So you get out there, you do it yourself. There's a whole bunch of other questions that people are asking. It's like, how do you pick a spot to go? Like, did you go out in the dark? Did you do this? Like, how did you prepare for this and know all the steps to go through? Is it hunting with other people over the years? You learn to...
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's hunting with other people over the years. Just reading a lot. You can find a lot of information online. You can find it on Harvest Your Own. And being able to think of each step of the hunt. So when you're pre-planning, thinking of where are you going to go, and then what time do you need to arrive? Right. Where are you going to get there? What are you looking for in terms of the, not the animal, but the habitat? So where do you think they'll be in this particular spot at Junction? I had been there the day before. So because I had been there, I knew I knew the lay of the land, and I knew where there had been, a lot of tracks, and just had a real sense of where there'd probably be a good chance of coming across some whitetails. So it's experience and a bit of pre-planning. And then sometimes I think it is just the convergence of, everything kind of comes together and it works out.
I've always said I'd rather be lucky than good, but your story tells me that you're paying attention. You were out there, you saw tracks, you know which way the wind's blowing, where to park, how to get in. And it's all these little things that we often take for granted that we don't share with people that, there is stuff, but every time you go, you learn a lesson. If you don't watch the wind, the deer bust you and run off. And the next time you walk with your nose into the wind and
that's right.
skirt the country a different way. But, it's not necessarily convergence of what the animal's doing, but it's convergence of everything playing in your mind. What do I need to do to be successful?
That's right. And when I got there and I parked, and you close your door ever so quiet so you don't slam it, right? Because early on I'd be slamming the door and people would be looking at me, and I'm like, oh, okay, note to self, don't shut your door like you're in the city. But I'd crossed the fence, walked 10 or so feet in, and a doe and a fawn jumped, and I spooked them and they ran. But they ran in the direction of where I knew there was deep bush, where there typically, there had been a lot of tracks the day before. So I knew to wait, and I waited. In my mind, I waited 10 minutes, but maybe it was only 5.
Right.
But I waited to let them go, and then, and so that, that the fact that I'd spooked them, that they had, that had kind of passed through their mind and they were going and doing their own thing. So I waited long enough, and then I followed their tracks, because I thought, well, if there's, given the time of year and the time of the season, and it was later in the season, I thought there was a good chance that there could be, some other deer that would be in there, and maybe a buck. So I followed their tracks and continued to follow them, keeping an eye on my clock, because I did have to get back into the city in time. And lo and behold, there was a buck in there, and it kind of winded me, and I thought, well, this is weird, because he totally winded me, but he went farther down into the slough bottom,
right?
And then I just continued super slow, following his tracks, because I figured that he'd probably kind of bed down or hunker down in the slough bottom, but also thought he might be, going after and searching to see where that doe might be.
Correct. He probably thought he didn't want to leave the ladies that were in there.
That's right. Yeah. So, so it is the convergence of all these things that you pick up over time. So when on that particular hunt, when I did get down and learned something, because, I'm going through a lot of deep bush, end up coming out along the edge line, and he was there. And so I, crouched down, had him in my sights, went to pull the trigger, but my, what do you call it?
Bolt?
The bolt was slightly up. So I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Because he knew I was there, and he's looking at me and I'm looking at him, and my bolt was slightly up, so I couldn't pull the trigger. So that's something that since then I've always double checked that the bolt is fully down but I wouldn't have, I didn't know that at the time, and it could have been a different story otherwise.
He hung out long enough for you to fix the problem, though.
He hung out long enough, and it was a good lung heart shot, and he did his little jump and fell, and it wasn't till I got to him where I went, okay, all right, this is a decent size for me, a pretty decent sized deer. And I was a good, kilometer a bit from the truck. And I kept some pretty good bearings to know where I was along the, where I was in relationship to the truck. And I thought, look at my clock too, because I knew I had a timeline I was on. And I thought, okay, this is going to be, I think it was about 2 hours maybe. This is going to be difficult, but it's doable. And so I walked back through to the truck, through the snow, brought the sled back, and and then I went, okay, this is really going to be difficult, because he was for me, he was pretty big. He probably weighed more than I did. So
big Alberta whitetail deer they're heavy. There's a lot of weight to them. They're bulky. They're hard to deal with.
Mm-hmm. So I'd been out the previous season. I think it was the previous season with a friend who'd gotten quite a large deer. His wife had actually gotten the very large deer, and I'd seen how he had broken that deer. Basically cut it in half. Right. And so I knew, from having seen that, I knew exactly where to do that on the spine. So I was able to put it into 2 parts, hind and the torso in the front, and then slowly made my way to bring it back to the truck. Well, took me a while to recover, Brad.
I bet. That's a great tip. And, the listeners, if you're looking for ideas and information on what to pack and what to get ready for, there's a pile of information on Harvest Your Own.
This podcast was made possible by Alberta Conservation Association and the Harvest Your Own community. If you're interested in harvesting your own food, there's a comprehensive collection of information to gain insight and knowledge. Head to the field, harvest your own protein, prepare it, and taste the results. HarvestYourOwn.ca is a library of information, from getting started and geared up to processing, butchering, and cooking wild game, to make the connection between health and food.
Well, I love your story. There's lots of excitement to it, and I've got 100 questions running through my head, but obviously you were prepared. You had everything in your pack you needed. You came with, did you take it out on a sleigh or a game cart?
It was a sleigh. Yeah, and there was enough snow.
A kilometer from the truck. So to the truck, back to the deer for 1/2, back to the truck with it, back out. It's no wonder you were tired.
Yeah, I was a bit tired.
You said it took a few days to recover?
Yeah. I was pretty tired. It was the toughest part was there were some hills to get back to the truck. Kind of go up a hill, a little bit down, and then flat to the truck, and then actually getting it into the back of the truck. We've got some what do you call them? The
ramps.
The ramps that go on the back, and then I've got a winch. So it was having all of those tools in place that really, took away the barriers for me to be able to go out on my own. And then that was a journey, right? That was a pretty good journey to get to that point of being able to do all that. Because I didn't ever want to be in a position where I had downed a deer and wouldn't be able to deal with it.
Right.
Because you've got a legal, moral, ethical responsibility to take this out.
Yeah. There are options. I mean, you could phone friends, you could cancel the rest of the day's plans, you could go home and come back later with help, but I understand where you're at. You want to deal with it, and it has its own rewards, does it not?
Sure. And I had friends afterwards that they were like, holy, you could have called. And I thought, yeah, I could have, but I also could just do it.
Absolutely. Did you make your meeting?
Yes, I managed to get my son from hockey.
Oh, good. I bet you were still in camo.
No, I did go home, hang the deer, and took off, and put on some other clothes.
That's pretty impressive. Now, how you had the ramps and everything with you, so you're able to be self-sufficient. You were out last year and harvested another big game animal?
Yes. Yep. I had another tag last year. And when I saw to be honest, I can't remember if it was a whitetail or a mule deer. Anyways, I remember when I saw him, he was a little buck, and I thought, okay, That's a nice size. You're smaller, and it was in a grazing reserve, so I could drive a little bit closer. I still had to have a game cart to get him out, but I'll admit for that one, I did sit on the back of the truck for a little bit and see if there might be someone that could come by and help me put him in. But I did again have all the stuff I needed to to do it on my own.
And hunters are generally very helpful people. Did someone come along?
Two guys actually did. They were still hunting in the bush, and they walked. They were making their way out, and they came over, and they were like, "Oh, we see you've got a deer right at the on your game cart and by your truck." And they said, "Can we give you a hand putting that in?" And I said, "Absolutely. Your timing was perfect."
Awesome.
So no, hunters are in my experience have been super helpful in sharing tips and experience and ideas and anything anything kind of out in the field. It's been a really welcoming community.
Awesome. It's yours is an interesting story because Dan's very proud of you as a hunter. He takes you out. I think he loves the fact that he's got a partner to go with, but when you have kids, you don't always get to do it together.
Yeah, that's right.
So the two of you have really worked out an interesting system.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, because someone has to run the kids around and get them to their things and do the other activities. And so sometimes it is, just a matter of looking at your schedules for that week or that part of the month and see who has the chance to get out. Right.
So basically it's supporting each other. It's not fighting for, I get to go Wednesday, you're going to watch Thursday. And you work it out and everyone gets out and you have time together, you have time alone, and you create your own memories, your own experiences. Yeah,
that's right. And it just like any other activity that families are needing to negotiate and fit into their time and their schedules, and everyone's busy. It's just a matter of planning it in advance, and it seems to work for us anyway.
And I would guess your life's going to get a lot busier because you have two boys, and they are now old enough. Both of them are old enough to hunt birds. One's old enough to hunt big game.
That's right. Yeah. So they're excited about being able to go out, and that's another. That's kind of another fun part, I guess, of the journey is you get to mentor your own kids.
Right. Now you're the
get
mentor.
Them to come out. Yeah.
You get to pass on all that knowledge and experience and share those special moments.
Yeah.
Do you process your own game?
We do. Yeah. We started, initially, like, we would take it to the butcher and have the butcher do it. And then over time, we just thought that it would be an interesting, an interesting part of the journey to learn how to do, break it down and process it on our own. So we started with getting a meat grinder and then just doing some ground meat. And over the years, I'd say we've gotten a lot better. Again, we've, everything from the butcher table in the garage, putting like YouTube videos on to, in the beginning, to say, okay, like how do we actually do this so that we're getting the right cuts of meat and using the meat in the right way? Because there's nothing worse than trying to cook a particular, piece of muscle in the wrong way.
Right. You don't want to take out something chewy when you think you have a nice tender steak to go on the grill.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Interesting. So, question I ask everybody: what is your favorite wild game recipe or meal?
Oh my goodness. I would say just for simplicity and ease, burritos. You can't go wrong. Like you just can't go wrong. You just, you cook up your ground deer, moose or elk, whatever it is, and everyone can make their own burrito. That one's got to be a go-to favorite just because it is so easy, especially on a weekday.
Right. And it's a family pleaser. It's one that most people like, and it's easy to do, and off you go.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Any advice for women out there that are afraid to take on the challenge, get out and do it? Anything for, pre-planning, confidence?
Yeah, I would just say for anyone who wants to get into hunting, just to find a really good mentor who can help you through it. That's probably been the biggest thing for me is having someone who's been able to to mentor me through, because there's so much to learn. There's only so much you can learn from reading. There's only so much you can learn from YouTube videos, and actually having someone who's hunting in the way that you want to learn to hunt, to have the opportunity to get out and just do it.
And
get out.
There's lots of people out there that would help mentor, and there's programs in Alberta. So I would like to thank you for coming in today, Sheila. I love your stories. I love your enthusiasm. And I'm sure your boys are going to benefit from that greatly as they now take on the challenge of deciding whether they're going to be hunters.
All right. Well, thanks, Brad.
We hope to inspire people to reconnect with nature and appreciate where your food comes from by harvesting your own. For more information on getting started or to learn specifics about the Field to Fork experience, visit harvestyourown.ca and follow on Facebook and Instagram. Check back often for new material, recipes, and videos that are posted regularly. Please subscribe to Harvest Your Own podcast and take the time to rate and review the show to help us build a dedicated core of passionate hunters as our regular audience. Until next time, embrace the outdoors and all it has to offer. Thanks for joining us.